So welcome to the panel. We have on the panel Kim-Dieu next to me, and next to Kim-Dieu, Barry Thompson. Next to me here, Gary, and next to Gary, we have Teresa. So, and I've got questions. The first question is quite a long one. We are at the brink, and the UN tells us we have to make dramatic changes if we want a livable world for our young people. We know what to do and how, and have the means to do it. Jason Hickel, an economic anthropologist, has written a book, Less is More: How Degrowth Will Save the World. My question is, how many theosophists will scale down to basics? Less meat and dairy, less travel, less consumerism. Who would like to start on that?
Okay.
Yeah, you need that.
I think I'm personally down to basics anyway, in many respects. As I said in my talk, humanity is engaged in a political and economic phase which is bereft of spiritual principles. I think the matter really comes down to education and making people aware. Teresa expressed optimism in her talk about the direction of the world. I would echo this. Our children are our future. I mentioned that as well. I feel this is very important, but the environmental matters, there is of course a challenge in making a good transition without impoverishing many people. Of course, we live in the West, we live in very much a consumer society, which makes matters extremely difficult. But I think it really comes down to basic theosophical principles in realizing our interconnectedness as humanity and the earth as a living, breathing organism, and establishing priorities. But in terms of the actual question, yes, it will be difficult, but it's all down to education and elevation of consciousness.
I think as Theosophists, with increasing soul contact comes increasing responsibility and a realization of your responsibility to the whole and a desire in your heart to do what you can do. And so, you know, with that, there comes a natural desire to live more simply, to live with what you need and not what you want, less focus on material things and more focus on what is important to the soul. And this vibrational change happens very naturally as you live the teachings. And that's the key. It's living the teachings rather than just studying them. It's finding ways for them to integrate into your life.
Want to say anything? No? No, that's for you too.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt this panel because I've just been handed a note which says 7 people have still not handed in their room key. You know who you are. If you are one of those people who haven't handed in your room key, please will you go and do it? I'm a guilty person. Would you like me to collect them? Anybody else? We'll give you 5 minutes. Go on, off you go. No shame. Okay, so we'll move on now. I have another question. Tim Wyatt's presentation suggested that we as a theosophical society could really make a difference if we joined together in a project. Will the TS take this idea further? Who would like to respond to that? Okay.
I echo those words. And I know in the past there has been some initiatives for example, group meditation work, for other work on the inner planes in groups. And obviously this is something we need to learn to do and learn to do effectively in Aquarius. And I would certainly support any initiatives in this way. And there are other spiritual organizations of which I'm a part and other people are a part who do regular, weekly, monthly. You know, we've got full moon coming up the end of this week. Work at the times when this energy is particularly valuable.
Can I?
Yes. And then Kim-Dieu.
Yes, I concur with what Tim and Teresa are saying. I think it's very important our organization does not simply become a historical artifact. We have been given these teachings, this wonderful paradigm at a very important juncture in human evolution. We enter the Aquarian age, and as Theosophists, we should be functioning together both on the inner planes in terms of the meditation, creative visualization that Teresa's mentioning, and also demonstrating spirituality and action through the service work of the TOS. And I do think we need to be more visible in the world.
Would you?
You want to go first?
No, then.
Okay. Hello. I remember many, many years back when I first started out stumbling along this path, I read a book by W.E. Butler, who was most well known for his work on ritual magic in the kind of Dion Fortune tradition, but he was also a liberal Catholic priest and a member of the TS. And he was discussing the work of the Frenchman, Émile Coué, in one of his books. Here we go. And Coué developed a system of suggestion for self-improvement. And each morning you would tell yourself, every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And the one thing about that kind of a technique, which is apparently as a matter of fact, is that sometimes it will work and sometimes it will not work. So it's not every day in every way. The reason that Butler claimed that was the case is that using the conscious mind ignores the question of the unconscious. And it's all very well to make conscious determinations, conscious affirmations or decisions to act or behave or move in a particular way, but there is a counterforce, the unconscious, that's pulling sometimes in a different direction. And I mean, the question I think was slightly inaccurately or worded in the sense that, from what I recall, Tim was talking about the, it's also been called the 100th month. He didn't use this particular phrase, but it's been called the 100th monkey puzzle, which is the claim that if individuals in a group start behaving in a particular way, there will be at some point, via an undetermined means, a quantum leap, and the behavior will spread without other individuals having seemingly learnt it. The actual case came from Japanese scientists studying the behavior of monkeys on an island somewhere. And one of the monkeys, I think, was taught to, or had discovered the art of washing potatoes. And all of a sudden, monkeys on another island somewhere away where there was no actual direct physical, allegedly no direct physical contact between the monkeys. The other monkeys started washing their potatoes. And this is the idea that consciousness spreads just as physical things spreads. And the issue is, so Tim's argument is a sense that, and he quoted the transcendental meditation movement, which claims that if a certain number of people meditate in a particular area, then things like crime will decline because they're spreading good vibes and good energy around. And the question to me, or the question that I see here, is to what extent, A, is that factually true? And it's, as always, there's always counter arguments and rebuttals, but also to what extent are there other forces and factors at work? To begin with, there are certain stages that we can't go beyond, which I did try to address in some small way in the talk I gave. We would like things to be perfect, but according to the Lord Buddha, the first fundamental truth is the unsatisfactoriness of all things. Was he French Gnostic scholar called this idea that you can bring down the divine and have a fully divinized world, immanentizing the eschaton. It was Eric Vogelin. Perfection is one thing, but perfection is always relative. That's not to say that the TS shouldn't work out with other groups, but ultimately we have to ask ourselves the question, is work at that mental level as productive as work at a personal level? You might argue that it's not a question of either or. We can work at a mental level and have group meditations. And that's been very much the way that the Alice Bailey movement has done with their full moon meditations. And a few years back, the English section, Eric McGuff did a link meditation. I think was it the first issue of Esoterica? The very first issue of our magazine, Esoterica, he asked people to meditate at midday, same time every day, and creating a link. I have no idea how many people still do that.
Who knows?
We've got two.
No.
So there we go. You know.
Chance.
Yeah. So I think there are limits to what we there's no limit to what we can do on a, if you like, an organizational level. But I think that the key point here is that for the progress has to be individual, and it has to be in full consciousness and awareness. Otherwise, it's just following a trend.
Thank you, Barry. Kim-Dieu?
Thank you.
Well,
I regret that Team Wyatt is not here among us, because I would like to address directly my participation in the answering to him. His brilliant conference showed us how enthusiastic he was. And enthusiasm is a very important element, but limited, because it is emotional. We want to do things at once and in the scale of our imagination. Let us know that at any time, we as a Theosophical Society worldwide, we have all projects running. Don't you know that at Adya we have the new Academy of Theosophy, Theosophical Academy, Adya Theosophical Academy. It is a project, and if you feel like very much it is on the education level, we help to the financially, and then also mindfulness, we pour energy in it to give it a long run project, but it will give very solid consequence and implications. Because if we jump on at any yes, I have to eat my ice cream. Because at any small project, it can last for a few years and we die with enthusiasm decreasing. It is an experience of my seeing in the society and N square. So we have to know what we want. We want the long run, or we want just to be visible on the outer world. The Adya Theosophical Academy will be visible when it will be functioning. But it will take time. Well, it cannot all of a sudden, as a KH wrote very nicely and correctly, it will take more than 1 year to make the youngster grow. Is it? Do I mention, do I quote well? Well, so be patient and cooperate with our projects on the levels of any level. And in European level, we have also some, but I don't want to have a kind of competition here, right? So focus our effort to our mother society to make it grow. We need everyone. €1, 1 shilling, 1 sterling, whatever, but the mind and the intention is more important. But make it practical and alive.
Okay.
Team, thank you very much for raising the question. It gives us the occasion to clarify it.
Can I just add, I work also with Lucius Trust, and their Triangles group meditation work has been working on the inner plane since 1945. And on a weekly webinar, they still get around 200 people from worldwide tuning in. So once established, it can last, and it becomes part of how you live and part of your inner soul conviction, and also part of an incredibly supportive network, knowing that other people have like-minded views and want to make a difference. And when you work together, that the sum of the parts is greater. So that just as an example of something that the sort of thing that can be done.
We now have a question online. Kim-Dieu mentioned in her talk that Gautama Buddha is the master of our time. So what does this mean as regards other later prophets stroke saviors who came later than the Buddha? Kim-Dieu?
Now, a few remarks before dealing with the question itself. Ice cream. A few remarks before dealing with the question itself. First of all, the spelling of Gautama should be a G. Yes. Okay, it is a minor thing. I didn't say master of our time. I said the teacher of our time. It is quite different. So it is teacher of the time. And the question is, prophet saviors who will come later than Buddha. Buddha is a state of consciousness, and we call Gautama the Buddha is this individual at that time who realized this sublime and supreme state of mind in consciousness. Now, according to the Buddhist tradition, before him and after him, there were and there will be Buddhas to come. And there's a saying in Buddhism saying that the number of the Buddhas are like the grains of sand of the Ganga. So you can count, meaning that it is, as time is eternity, it will by cycle will bring a new consciousness, and a Buddha is a state of consciousness. And when consciousness evolves, new Buddhas necessarily will come, whether you wish or you don't. But if you wish and you want, then it makes things move a little bit greater. Now, according to greater and faster, I mean, according to the tradition, always, I say Buddhist tradition because the question is the Buddhistic one. After Gautama the Buddha will be Maitreya the Buddha. But this is how it induced many writings, many imaginative thinking, etc. Let us just think that it is the new consciousness to come, and all of us and each of us are building it up. The next Buddha, Maitreya Buddha, will be the new consciousness built out of our understanding for the future. For those who want to understand a little bit more about the process of it, I would suggest to read Sinet's book called Esoteric Buddhism. There are still some mistakes in it, as Kay had stated out, but in the whole, it is a very good book to give light in your question.
Yes.
Yeah, so try to keep it brief. As it is, as it is such a simple, simple and uncomplicated topic. In one sense, the first thing I'd point out is that, and actually I'll invoke the shade of Tim Wyatt again, because remember Tim was making a call for original thought and original thinking. And personally, I'm extremely, if we take that term literally, I'm extremely skeptical about the possibility of original thought. Because if it's a truly original thought, arguably it's a thought, type of thought, kind of thought that nobody else in the world has ever had before. Now, some of us amongst us may think we're original thinkers and thinking outside the box, but who here would be willing to put money to say, I have had a thought that nobody else in the world has ever had before? I am pretty much along the lines of thought goes into patterns and types. And very often, I mean, there are psychological types if you want to take the Jungian way or whatever. And so we tend to think along, if you like, we can be grouped by the way we think. And what, in one sense, this question strikes at one of the issues that has dogged the Theosophical Society ever since it was founded, which is the question about the respective merits, as if you know, you can balance it out like that, which is a pretty distorted way of approaching it, but the respective merits of East and West, Jesus and Buddha. And it was one of the big arguments, or one of the major differentiating themes between the Blavatsky teachings and, to a lesser extent, the Besant's Leadbeater variant and Alice Bailey, much more extreme and crucial for Rudolf Steiner, in which Jesus is pitted, in a sense, against the Buddha. What's significant here is that, I mean, Blavatsky argued that the Gospels are not literally true, they're allegories of initiation. The Gospels are we've got 4 Gospels in the official Bible, a few more, things like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gnostic Gospels. But the significant point about the Buddha is that the material that we have that's attributed to the Buddha, and some of it has got to be within that genuine teaching strain. If we were to lay the books out, here we're back to books again, aren't we? It would go, I think even the Pali Canon would take up a fair amount of this room. But what Buddhist teaching seems to be oriented at is the individual, given which is in a sense paradoxical, because Buddhism enjoins us to kill out any false sense of self, false personality, but the onus is upon individual action and an individual transformation of consciousness. And what Christian mysticism and Christianity seems to me to exemplify is social action. So a literal evangelical Christian will tell you that Jesus came, and by Jesus' act, Jesus has saved us, and all we have to do is believe in him. And so what's happening here is, you see there's 2 different types. One type of thought emphasizes individual action, meditation. The other one is the world has changed and you need to tune into the world. And we get people within the Theosophical Society who continually focus on individual meditation, individual practice, and others that tell us that the energies of the world have changed and we need to tune into the new vibe. And I remember there was somebody at headquarters said, how many times do we have to have a Gulf War to realize that the Maitreya is not coming? The salvation has to come from within. There isn't going to be a savior figure. The salvation will come within. Christ which is
Does
a
that-
corollary of Buddha, is Christ, who is a corollary of Buddha within Theosophy, signifies the regenerated spirit in the world. It's not somebody that's coming to save us. So yes, so there are teachers all the time.
Either of you want to say?
Very quickly. I think Barry's made, we're going off track a little bit, but I think Barry's made a very good point in relation to conditions at different times on our planet. Yes, we live in different socio-cultural conditions, but the inner vehicles are the same. And the spiritual path is about establishing connections with the higher self on behalf of the monad. If I could also just state, I did mention the factor of service a few times in our talk, and the Buddha's renunciation of nirvana to serve humanity it's a great exemplar of what we are here for and our oneness. When we tread the path, we do it for the benefit of all, and the higher we climb, the more we realize this and the better equipped we are to affect this.
So we have now a rather personal question here. The Right Reverend Dr. Michael Van Buren told somebody that he would evoke the angels during his wife's funeral service. The question is, how long will the deceased person remain with the angels, and where does she go next? Anybody know the answer to that?
Who knows?
Yeah?
No, who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows the answer?
You need to speak into the, you need to speak into
Tell the ice cream.
Who knows to answer this question? We base our understanding and our answers according to some. Okay, what?
No, go on, carry on.
Yeah. We cannot pretend to give an answer which is all true, but we can repeat some understanding in some tradition. According to the Buddhist tradition, and also Theosophical traditions, which follow the Buddhistic one as to this chapter, that after the death of a person, the consciousness of the person does not have the consciousness to be already dead. The consciousness continue to believe that I am still alive. So traditionally, the Buddhists would suggest not to move the room of the dead person and change many things, because you would disturb the consciousness of the dead one, who is not yet conscious of his own death. So after 7 times 7 days, meaning 49 days, the dead consciousness will become conscious that he no longer have a body to use. So this apart from this day on, we can move a little bit, but in some very, very faithful families, we keep the whole thing in the room, etc., unmoved during 1 year, meaning that to answer biasly to this question, we should not think that a disappeared person just disappears. He or she is still there as to consciousness, and if one of us, or if you live next to this person, you will feel the presence of this person. You can even see this person. If you have high sensitivity, you can see the person in her or his astral body. Because if you try to go and touch, it is like a hologram. You cannot touch it as a flesh and bones thing, but you can see it because you're seeing operates also on the astral plane. Well, it is what I try to say now, because it is a repetition of what I have read, I have understood and apply in my family, but it is not the truth with a big T. So just take it as a sharing.
Can I just add, my intuitive feeling is it depends on the person and their soul and all the circumstances, and that it varies. And a lot of near-death experience, scientific study, and people who have described what has happened to them when they've had, you know, a miniature death or a glimpse of what happens, have described there's no time on the astral plane, and so the time here in the physical has got very little to do with the time, where there is no time. Does that make sense?
The next question is online. Anger versus do no harm is a tough one to know what this really means at a spiritual level of exchange. How to firm this mantra of no harm in oneself? And advice, please. Yes, you can.
Okay, this is one that it's a beautiful question, because it's one that I have grappled with. And my understanding is to do no harm. If we hold on to anger, because anger is always associated with an attachment. It's an attachment to an idea, an ideal, a belief. We do ourselves harm. So do no harm applies to ourselves and to others. Now, if we are consciously aware, we can choose to do no harm in releasing the energy of anger, because it has an energy that is in our etheric body and will stay in our etheric body if we don't release it. So by being consciously aware, we choose a safe and appropriate way to release the energy, the fire energy of anger. And then we come back to the situation to address the underlying cause or the miscommunication or the whatever has sparked the anger. And also there is the opportunity to go deep into self-reflection and look at the causes within you. That anger, therefore, you can manage it if you are conscious and consciously manage it, so it does no harm. And it might be in an angry conflict situation, you say, I want some time out, but I want to come back to this. And that is your conscious no harm response. But there is also a recognition that, you know, no harm means no harm to yourself as well. And this is my understanding of a healthy spiritual way of dealing with that anger issue, that anger energy.
Yes, Teresa gave a very excellent talk on this subject earlier in the week, which has no doubt inspired the question which appears. I would like to add, just from a psychological point of view, many forms of anger are rooted in complexes, psychological complexes, which in theosophical terms, complexes arise through either an event in our lives or a series of events which have been traumatic, harmful, hurtful, shameful, and produces an aggregation of astral matter within the aura, which causes then mental matter to constellate around it as well, and the astral pulls the mental. So as Teresa has said, by gaining the higher perspective, by purification, by use of the will, we then gain insight into these complexes and we overcome them, just as Heracles lifts the Hydra out of the swamp. So we effectively hold these up to the light of the higher self as a means of dissipating them.
Thank you.
Anger is one of our a problem of everyday life. And as I said the other day, anger is just raw energy. Either you use it and you learn to use it, or you will be used by it. And some people living under the anger, at the end of the road, they will somatize the thing into sickness, and either it is a long way or shorter, but it will come sickness in the physical body. So try to learn how to handle anger and how to handle anger, because saying it is very easy thing, but doing it start with the awareness that you are in anger. If you are not, then you will fly over it, put it under the carpet, and whatever, you will sing a song, a beautiful song to get out of the anger, but it is there, hiding itself in the corner. Look at it, face it, not be friend with it, but use it. Use it in the sense that you are using the pen or computer. It's just a thing for you to be used. That's all. You are not to be a slave of your beautiful pen or beautiful computer or whatever. Use it and don't hide it. Don't be ashamed that you are angry. Everyone is, because it is raw energy given to you. And if you learn to use it, then you will master the anger, and also not the anger only, but master the energy, because the energy is at the core of everything, and the first manifestation for not evolved persons, for animals, is anger. Animals cannot handle anger. They just express it, fight, bite, whatever. But humans cannot do as animals. They cannot shout, they cannot bite, they cannot, etc. And so just there is no other way to go, no other path. Learn to master it. Perhaps you can succeed. You may perhaps not succeed at all, but start again, because life is always a repetition of learning. And Blavatsky said it, if you fail, start again. And don't fail and say, it is impossible. And then I do other things. It is a way of escapism. Anything else?
Just one quick.
One quick.
No escape from me. Well, just I sort of had a spark of a thought there, but not an original thought. When from what Gary said about the astral pause, the mental, and it seemed to me to relate to this, you know, the earlier question about, if you will, working on a mental plane to heal the world. If it is literally the case that the astral pause, the mental, then one of the drawbacks of mental work is that we get stampeded into the vast swathes of emotion and so on and so forth that sweep the world. And in connection with this, one of the ways of releasing anger is, so what? It's so what? Let it be. It's if my ego has been wounded, I'll live. The world will keep on turning. And this goes on to the idea of the renunciation of the fruits of action, that insofar as we actually want to do anything, if you like, at a spiritual or a mental level, beyond the pure organizational, we don't do it with the idea that we're going to build an organization, have massive, it's just for the sake of the work, for the release of the energy.
Can I just add a very simple way to think of it? Yes, the astral can hijack or the mental, but it works the other way. The mental can rise above the astral. And when you have a strong mental body, this becomes easier. So what I say to people, and often if I'm teaching children, I'll say, think of anger as the choppy sea, turbulent, tossing you waves, tossing you here and there. And you are afraid you will drown in those waves. But if you hop on your surfboard, your mind is your surfboard, you can ride those waves and you can ride to calmer waters. Or need be, if the surfboard doesn't work, idea doesn't work, you can dive beneath the waves. And if you go deep enough, it's calm down there. The surface is choppy, but down deep in connection with your deepest self, it's calm down there. And you find what you need to still be aware of the choppy waves, but not be controlled by them, not be tossed around.
Okay, allow me to say a few words more.
Okay, next.
Don't worry about it, because you will not succeed on the first time. You will not succeed the second time, but don't worry, it will come back again. It is like an opportunity for you to learn, and it is the repetition, and with this repetition, you will grow greater in will and also in heart, because you will understand the nature of anger and the nature of those who are angry, particularly against you. Finish now. Thank you. Doctor.
And of course, what we are talking about here relates to our spiritual practices and disciplines and the treading of the path. Basically, we are seeking to extinguish karma manas, mind driven by the astral, and elevate the mind to buddhi manas and the inclusiveness of the Buddhic plane. And again, we've been talking about coming from the heart. Teresa just touched her heart. She emphasized this greatly in our talk, as I did also, particularly when I mentioned the second ray solar system and the need for us to express heart chakra qualities.
Thank you. I have another question. How can we be the most effective in helping to relieve the suffering of those in conflict or in war? And would it be as an individual or as a group? Anybody?
I would say both. Conflict or any suffering that's happening with other people that we become aware of invokes our compassion, our compassionate heart. And we need to understand the difference between compassion and pity. And this is the difference between, say, solar plexus. In the solar plexus, pity, there is an attachment. There is a, I describe this, I say, if somebody is in trouble, they've fallen into a hole, and you have a choice how you help them out of that hole. You can jump in the hole with them, and then two people are in the hole, but at least the person has got some company, and you're both, that's pity, but it's not helping them get out of the hole. You can stand on the side and shout at them, but again, they're just going to recoil. That's not going to help them get out of the hole. You can stand on the side and support and say to them, there's the ladder. Come on, you can do it. Climb up on that first rung. You can't do it for them, but you can encourage them to climb up that ladder, and you can be there for them to give them a hug when they get to the top and to say, well done, I was with you all the way. And this is the same in the world. We need to work out where we stand. If there's a conflict somewhere and people are suffering, what can I do? What can we do? What, am I just jumping into pity? Is the mass media pulling me into pity? Am I coming from a place of compassion, which has that detachment that enables you to do something positive? What can I do? Can I send some money to an organization who's on right there and helping? Can I, what can I do? And this is really working in compassion, in the thinking of the heart.
Couple of sentences. Teresa, anticipate the first one in relation to compassion and donating to worthwhile causes that can alleviate suffering. And again, earlier we were talking about work on the inner planes and Eric McGough's link and the work of the Lucis Trust. I'm also part of a triangle. We can do a lot in terms of meditation, creative visualization also.
Want to say anything? I agree.
Yes, I say something, but please remind me the question because there are so many things.
Okay.
Forgotten
The question is, how can we be the most effective in helping to relieve suffering of those in conflict or at war, and either individually or as a group? Which-
Individually, we must avoid conflict in ourselves. And in the everyday life, we can observe, we cannot deny that many times we're in conflict. Conflict with somebody, a conflict with ourselves, because there are thoughts running around. Some of them are not ours, but then it sticks to our mind, and then they are conflicting together. Be aware of it and don't fall in the trap of this, because the mind should be quiet, and a conflicting mind is a mind in war, or small war, but adding all together, it will create the war. Any war we have experience in humanity from A to Z. So we cannot solve the problem collectively because there are so many factors going above us. You cannot be a good ethical politician to solve the problem, because even you are this politician, it is so complex that we have compassion towards this politician who cannot save it all of a sudden. Out of this, we have to realize that the core of the problem is in the individual, in the consciousness. Why there is war? It is a kind of play of ego, greed, ego, power, etc. And if there is nothing to be added to this, it is not idealistic that you have to fight for your country, you have to fight for this and that. Behind all this is money, greed, and power. That's all. And inside ourselves, if we find out that the problem, conflictual problem in ourselves, is also some want for money, some want for power. So this is renunciation. Drop those ideas down as we drop anything we don't want, put it in the waste bin.
We have another question. It has been said that suffering has always existed. So it does not exist, no suffering. So I think that we need to stop suffering and observe suffering without identification with it. Can you help us understand better how to achieve this?
I check the question because it is raised 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Well, in your question, you give the answer. Because you said without identification with it. So now with identification, you mean that you're creating the problem. Suffering is there. You can see that your stomach is aching. You can see that your feet is swelling and making pain to you. You have headache, etc. But as long as you don't say that I have headache and the headache is mine, there is no sufferer. The suffering is there. So you decide. Suffering you cannot deny. Everywhere is suffering. This is a state of evolution. If you allow, I will take 2 minutes more to develop it, meaning that everyone is suffering, but there is no sufferer. You have suffering everywhere, but then there are a certain number would be always complaining. I have pain there, I have pain there, I have, and the other number, less important, they will stick to this, be aware of it, and they don't say, I am this. And the very important thing that Jenny brought in her meditation, the consciousness should be I, but not I am or I do something. This is the consciousness of being. This is for Damon. It is the consciousness of being, just being, not being someone, somebody, etc. Now coming back to your question, you found the answer to it, meaning abstain from identification, meaning that you are there, you are as consciousness, wholesome, and you witness this pain in the body, this suffering, this sorrow in your mind when you have a broken heart. You have to be aware of it and not run away. This is other youngster, but some youngsters in there. If you have a broken heart, don't fall into it and go and dance and then look at it. Why you have a broken heart? And why is it? And it is not I have the broken heart. It is the identification, the action that you are taking this, you are a sufferer. Otherwise, suffering is there, but there is no sufferer coming to the picture. I think that I am quite clear to that, and I will take advantage of this. Well, I mean that to add some more remarks to that. Yeah, is it okay?
Gary wants to have a
Don't prepare the mind to answer to me, please. Just listen to me. Yeah. We are not playing ping pong or tennis. So just don't prepare, because I listened to you. I didn't prepare to give the following up. Otherwise, it will be endless, because there will be an endless answer, because there is no end. So this is my contribution. We accept that there is suffering everywhere, because we accept the theme. We have to heal ourselves. This is for sure. We cannot deny now at the end of the Congress, oh, what are you talking about? I doubt about that. This. But we are part of the word. We are the integrated part of the word. If we want to heal the word, we have to heal ourselves. And to heal ourselves, this is one way not to identify oneself with the suffering. It is the supreme healing. This is why also Gautama the Buddha is called sometimes the sublime supreme healer, because he shows the way. Do it and you will find the way. Now, the thing is that I want to add is that there's a big difference between the teacher as the Buddha to other teachers. He's the one who says, don't obey what I am saying. Experience and try it yourself, and experience and learn out of your understanding. You will not find many teachers telling you don't listen, because all the gurus of cheap gurus on the market, they will say, come, give me your money, listen to me, apply what I say. The only one I have found is Krishnamurti after Gautama the Buddha. I mean, I say to you, but who can tell somebody to do whatever? The other day, with a bit of humor, I said, if you want people to do, ask them the contrary, because very generally, they do the contrary of your request. So, well, it is very funny, well, not less funny when you are involved in the thing, but it is like that. Why? Because we do not have a mature mind. We have the mind, according to KH, a child of 4 years and a half. This is the fourth half round. I allow myself to be a little bit more generous than KH. I said, we are the mind of 13, teenage 13 of age, meaning that our way of emphasizing and confirming our existence is, here I am, I do the contrary. You wish me to do that? Everybody knows it at your young age. But with maturity, it is not that way. It is to ponder, to say, oh, what is it? What is the cooperation? We can differ in the way of doing, but we don't have this paradigm of opposing. It is very childish. It is very childish. I remember I have a very good friend, and she's still a good friend to me. In some discussion about Christianity and Buddhism, she said, oh, you have expounded about Naharshanai. I agree, it is so profound, but I cannot move from Christianity to Buddhism because I will have the feeling of betraying Jesus. Her word. She is afraid of betraying Jesus, moving the step forward. It is very childish. This is a woman of 40 years, but she has the mind of 10, 12 years old. How can, and then be patient. I will share a few things more. I mean, when we try to understand something, there are at least 3 levels. And the 4th level, I will keep for the last there. 3 levels. The first is the skin. You go around and you read many books and you quote many things and you have the impression that you understood. Well, you make around the thing and then that's it. And you move on and you touch the flesh level, meaning, what I have understood, it is more profound than that. I have to go and practice and see. Now the 3rd stage is the bone. You go to the bone and you said, goodness, all this is blah, blah. I have to come to the core of the importance of a teaching and forget about the blah, blah that I have. It is all useful at a certain step. Please do not misunderstand me that, this is rubbish. Huh? Please do not. Everything is useful at every level. But we move on to the flesh level. There's something new. And when we move to the bone level, it is an upside down revision of our view. And coming to the marrow of the bone, now we don't have a discursive mind. It stops with all this blah, blah. All the philosophies, all the dialectics, even the profound thoughts that we have had. All this is blah, blah. Because there is a realization is that we are one, and the one is this Atma, this is endless, this is boundless. This is just word. Saying it to you, I am moving to the flesh level. And perhaps if I continue to speak more, I will move to the skin level, which is rubbish. So let us stay at the bone level, at least, or if we can at all, with energy that we have transformed our anger to use it and go to the marrow level.
You want to
Leave some silence before, right? We are not going to.
Just one very short quote from William Quan Judge, whose aphorisms on karma. The first one, I'm quoting from memory, so don't chase me up if it's not word perfect, but
I'll hold it a bit closer.
there can be no karma unless there is a being to make and experience it. And that statement of his is not a statement of nihilism, it's a statement of psychology.
We've now run out of time. 11 o'clock.
Finish.
On that note, I have to thank on your behalf, I have to thank the panel very much for that insight. Barry, Kim-Dieu, Gary, and Teresa. Thank you very much.